Hi, my name is Demetra Theophanis, and I am a GAS board member and on the Community Outreach Committee. We are here today with the Community Outreach panel discussing navigating creative isolation. The role of the Community Outreach Committee is to remove barriers and provide more access to the individuals and institutions that have a really diverse array of programming around the world. We advocate for their public programs, we look for new opportunities and partnerships, and we also try to serve as a sort of information hub where we can collect and share resources to help others institute similar programming in communities where they're lacking, as well as to help those that have current programs find more efficient and effective ways of working them. I want to thank our three panelists for joining us here today and ask you each to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Deborah Rosinski, please.
Hi, I'm Deborah, based at the Appalachian Center for Craft in Smithville, Tennessee, and we are part of Tennessee Tech University, and we have kind of two main interdependent identities. So we have a workshop life similar to a Penland or Pilchuck, and we also have a university life. So we serve these different constituencies in different ways.
Thank you. Frederick, could we hear from you next, please?
Hi, my name is Frederick. I'm an outreach artist. I'm based in Hoboken in Belgium. It's a public access waste glass studio that I've set up, and one of the largest projects that I'm working on is working with young immigrants to help them to express themselves through the medium of glass, and at the same time try to learn to express themselves in the native tongue from here, which is Dutch.
Wonderful. And Barbara, could we hear from you next?
Hi there, I'm Barbara Heisler. I'm the CEO at Glassroots in Newark, New Jersey. And Glassroots is a community access full service studio. We have hot shop, cold shop, flame shop, flat shop, and classrooms. And our work is to ignite and build the cultural and economic vitality of the greater Newark area with a focus on underserved youth and young adults through the transformative power of the glass art experience.
Great. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started on our first topic, which centers on what you are each doing. How are you responding to closures and or maintaining a connection either in person or virtually in the current environment? Deborah, could we hear from you on this?
Sure, it's certainly been a day-by-day thing. I'm sure that's true for all of us. I think we've been quite fortunate. We're in a very remote area. We are in a state that was late to shut down and is possibly early to open up again. So that presents a few interesting challenges. But we are, in addition to having studios in clay, glass, metals, fibers, and woodworking, we also have residences here. So we have 6 artists in residence who live here. We have a number of senior level thesis students who have been granted access now in the studios, but we're officially shut down to the public. So we're in this kind of in-between space right now. And my personal focus has been to kind of help everyone gain a comfort level because it has been scary. And so we've spread everyone in housing out so they have plenty of space to feel safe. And we've reduced our staff on site. So most staff are working remotely with a few people on each day to minimize contact. And our workshop life, unfortunately, had to completely shut down. We were incrementally shutting down early in the summer and now decided that it really isn't responsible to continue without shutting down. The thought of bringing folks from all over the country into a confined space to work on projects in close quarters, it just doesn't feel like a responsible thing to do. So that's all shut down. But our thesis students who are part of the academic programs, we have 10 right now, are in studios basically 1 or 2 at a time, having some access. So we're kind of in this in-between world right now.
And Barbara, does that echo sort of the things that you are following where you're located, or are things substantially different?
So we're in a different environment. We are in the epicenter of the coronavirus in the United States. So we are 5 miles outside of New York City. We have a lot of connection to New York City. And in terms of New Jersey having the second most incidence of the virus, our hometown of Newark is the highest rate. So knowing how densely populated our area is, we started planning pretty early on. When we started watching what was going on in Europe, we actually started setting up protocols back in February. I look back at my calendar, I'm pretty amazed. They actually figured this out when we did. And we started planning for what would happen if, we had to close our doors to the public, and if we had to close our studios to our artists, and, also what would happen if we had to close our doors totally. Luckily, we haven't had to get to that step, and I don't think we will. So we pivoted pretty quickly to an online platform. Right now, all of our programs are being given for free via our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website. But we're currently in the process of figuring out how do we start to regain some control of our finances. We're very lucky to have gotten the government PPP funding for the next 8 weeks, and we see that as a real gift to give us time to figure out how we can connect to our community and keep our artists engaged with all of our students and our larger community in a meaningful way. And so we're looking at, what does it mean for a glass art studio to become a distance learning center?
Right.
And that's kind of difficult for our tactile medium that we all work in. The one other thing that I want to mention, though, is we have a 1 o'clock check-in with our staff every day. And we've been using Zoom to do that. And it's not a meeting, it's a drop-in time. It's optional. And it's been really good for us to be in touch with each other, to support each other right now, to help us figure out how we act in this place, both as artists, professionals, and as people. And so when we think about connections, it's not just connections to our constituents, to our clients or students, but it's also connections to each other. And I'm appreciative that we've been doing that.
Great, thank you. And Frederick, in Belgium, are you having a similar environment there, or how are you navigating things?
Yeah, I think the Belgians are quite well known for being a compromising country. It's one of the few countries that can survive without a government for over a year. So most of us had this idea when the pandemic hit us, was like, oh my God, it's gonna be difficult for them to navigate this. But in some strange way, they were very decisive, which helped a lot, because the quarantine is a lot lighter as compared to Italy or Spain. We're still allowed to go out, we're still allowed to go to our, so to speak, non-essential job, but we can't do that with anybody else. So it's a lot of solo time in the studio. Thankfully, there are a lot of financial safety nets that are in place. It's a very social country. So, all in all, it hasn't been a difficult situation. Of course, it's tiring. Starting up the studio, we had lots of events going, workshops, classes coming in. It was really bustling. And when something like this hits, it's, it can be a little bit demoralizing. But on the other hand, I had to install pipelines and the new glory hole and all this new equipment. And it was so busy that there wasn't even a chance to do that. So, you know, in a way, COVID has opened up some space to do all the things that you normally can't really do. So, you know, you make the best of it. I think everybody does. And when there's a lot of free time on your hands, you start looking at the closets, the empty spaces, and all those little jobs and odd ends that you would never think of doing at any other time. And now it's like, oh, this would actually be a good idea to start. So, yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, trying to fill the time and be productive.
And as you look at other organizations around the world, is there anything that you have seen that is particularly inspiring to you that the glass community is doing in response to COVID-19? Barbara, we can start with you on that.
So a few weeks ago, we started sharing a hashtag, hashtag Glass Connections. And every day that I look at that, I am inspired by the work that's going on around the world and people's willingness to share their craft for the betterment of our community at large. I'm fairly new to the glass art community, only 7 years, but I feel like I'm so connected to this community, and there hasn't been a moment that I haven't picked up the phone and called someone, and the answer is immediate and generous and warm. I'm not getting the sense this is going on in a lot of other professional communities. People are kind of struggling to figure it out on their own, but the glass art community, especially the public access studios and youth serving art studios, are really in this together. And so I say all hail this community.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Deborah, to that?
Yeah, I think that's really true. I've certainly found that to be true over the years, and I feel so lucky to be a part of this community, and in particular to be involved with GAS, who is putting on this virtual conference. I'm so amazed at how quickly it's coming together and how much depth it's going to offer, and I find that very inspiring, and just everything I'm seeing on social media as well. The biggest hit to our community and, most arts communities is our artists have lost their teaching income. They've lost their income selling work in galleries, that immediate in-person income. So we've been doing a lot more online presence to get that out, and enjoying seeing individual artists doing that themselves across the world. And it's just, to me, it's so inspiring, that richness and that energy that's coming out because of all of this.
And Frederick, do you feel that you've been able to also maintain an international connection amidst the glass community despite the closures?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna join Barbara there, that I'm fairly new to the glass community, and I think I'm even younger into the community than she is, because it's like 2 years or 3 years that I've been connected. So for me, absolutely, when you see the way people come together, it's amazing. And for me, it's always been a good thing. And now through the pandemic, you see that people pull together in a special way. I'm especially surprised with the studio visits. I think that's something that, be there pandemic or not, that's something, somehow that you keep going. It's just fantastic to look into people's studios and just see them talk about what they love doing. I would, definitely promote that as much as I can. It's really nice to see.
Right. And moving on to our next topic, sort of continues in the same vein that we have been talking, which is why are connections and community outreach so vitally important during this crisis? Deborah, would you like to start?
Sure. I think both personally and professionally, just that network of support, that we were just talking about, that knowing that we're not going through this alone. I mean, just the various forms of stress that, people are being hit with, I feel very fortunate to have a job and to be paid. Not everyone has that. A lot of people don't, especially in this field. And, just that shared support, comparing notes about ways people are tackling things, helping each other figure out, well, I haven't tried that, let's try that. Just that extended brain power, I think, is so valuable.
Agreed. How about you, Barbara?
Yeah, so, from where I sit, I'm both in this glass art community, but in the larger nonprofit community. And so we're both, living our mission through the medium of glass, but we also really understand that for us, that the impact is on the young people that we work with. And we don't, unlike some other studios, at least for our high school students, our goal is not to create glass artists. It's to use the medium of glass to help students understand that they have options for their future, that they, can build resilience and communication and collaboration and cooperation. And my God, are we just modeling that right now, right? We're modeling everything we teach. And so being able to build on that, being able to convey that to our students, why this self-determination, why having agency is so important. These connections are helping us demonstrate that none of us need to go at this alone, and that we can get through even the roughest of times. Unfortunately for a lot of our students who live in pretty desperate situations anyway, this is just compounding that. We know that who is being most severely impacted by this crisis, and for many of us that provide access to our studios, it's the same young people who are regularly impacted that are being doubly impacted here. And so, being able to stay connected to students, being able to stay connected to our staff, and being able to stay connected to this community, I think is a real life lesson for everyone involved.
Yeah, and I think that, as we touched on early on, glass is such a hands-on activity, and being in this crisis has really underlined how dependent we are on technology to bridge that gap right now, that we can't be working as a team in the shop and we can't be running those community events in person. So as we examine those digital connections that we are so reliant on right now, are we still able to connect with underserved communities as effectively as those are not? And if not, how can we address that? Frederick, would you like to start?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. There's I'm not sure how it is in the States, but here in Belgium, there's been a slow rise in domestic violence throughout the COVID situation. And the area that I'm working in, that's especially this underprivileged area, and a lot of these immigrants, they come into the country, and they, especially the young ones, there's this girl that spent 3 months with me. She lives with her two brothers, and her family is in the south of Morocco. And she doesn't really have parents. She just has her brothers, and she has to make do with that. So it's really tough for her to find her way through that. And linking on to if she has any digital presence, the ones that she does have, she was not keen to share that. It is still a 13-year-old young lady, which, you know, it's a difficult thing. But on the other hand, it's a lot of these kids here, you know, they're going back to school and they don't have any form of following online learning because there's like one laptop in a family of 4 or 3. So connecting to them with what we're doing through a digital platform is increasingly difficult. You know, at the moment, we're just trying to figure that out now. It's a task, and I actually can't find a way to say, well, this is a good way to do it, because you know we do our language things, we share that. But at the end of the day, it's about being here and being allowed to be yourself when you're in the studio and to express your own personal thing without your parents or your brother or sister or everybody else standing over you saying, what are you doing? So it's a tough one. And I honestly, I believe that we have to find a way around that people can be present. There has to be some kind of a physical presence, be it through 2 or 3 people or 5 or 6 or switching or alternating. It's that thing that's needed. It's specifically the space and the person that says you can be who you want to be. And I think a lot of these outreach programs have to address that more strongly, including my own.
Yeah, that's a great point. Deborah, are you seeing similar challenges where you are?
Certainly we are, yeah. We have a number of kids in our community who have kind of chaotic home life situations, and we had a series of them who were actually safer and calmer and able to deal here rather than going home. When the campus was purging everyone, I ended up having a number of kids in my office asking to stay, and it was actually safer health-wise and emotionally for them to be here. So we've done that. I think the biggest, hit and the area that makes me most sad is our high school programs that we typically do in the summer that are really mostly used by regional Tennessee kids in high schools that don't have access to what we can offer. Those kids, their schools are shut down. We shut down. It wasn't possible to continue this time, and just that they won't have that experience this year is really a shame. But also we're in a rural area, so we have a lot of poverty around us and very little in terms of broadband. And also March 3rd, we had big tornadoes come through very close to us and hit some of our communities. And then immediately after that, the worst of the pandemic started becoming evident. And so those challenges and brownouts and power outages and inconsistent internet have made that hard. But because we're in a rural area, we're also protected more than in the cities, and we have places to escape to, the beauty around us. That helps.
And how about you, Barbara?
Boy, I hear these challenges, and we all face the same challenge in a different way, right? Mm-hmm. So we're thinking about this a lot. We serve pretty broad community, but at the heart of who we serve are youth and young adults in Newark. And Newark does have a community-wide internet, but you have to have a device to connect to it. And not everyone does that, and not everyone can connect to the internet with a strong enough signal to carry streaming content or things like that. So everything we're doing immediately, everything we're doing right now at the end of April is in little short chunks, so that people that are accessing our content via a telephone can get the most out of what we're offering right now. But we're starting right now to think about how we move forward. What's our way forward understanding that we're not going to all of a sudden open up and have everyone in our studio one day. That
Right.
we think that there's going to have to be an intermediary point. And so we're talking about creating some products, some programs that have products that go with them. So for example, one of the programs we're talking about is a program around African trade beads. And so to accompany this program will be a printed brochure about African trade beads, the history of African trade beads. And then a little brochure about how beads are made. If someone is able to connect to the internet, they'll be able to watch a video about African trade beads. And if they're able to connect to the internet, they'll be able to watch a demo of one of our artists making beads. And if they're able to get to our studio, they'll be able to pick up a bag of beads that have been already made that they can take home with them and follow the stringing instructions and make a necklace or a hairpiece or a keychain. We're thinking about a similar way of dealing with mosaic glass and reaching back to Greek and Roman mosaics and giving, connecting the STEAM, the history and the math and the arts and the great engineering that went into mosaics. So, we're doing it old school and new school. We're going to do this combination. We're looking at options for kind of paywall distance learning programs. Not everything can go on Zoom. Most schools won't allow their students to connect with us via Zoom because of security risks. So now we're looking at, what are for those students that are connecting through school, so that the school has provided them with laptops or some computer. What are the safe platforms that we can be on to provide content? And then, we'll just kind of ease it in. We have a portable hot shop that our lead glassblower, Jason Manami, built a few years ago. Grant-funded project that we're very grateful for. And so, if people can't come to our hot shop because it's too confined, we'll have to take our hot shop out and bring that to the public so that they can experience the wonder of bone glass. But we're going to do it, right? We'll inch along until we get to the place that we can all be in the right place together. And I know my colleagues are going to figure this out as well.
Well, I'm in the Silicon Valley area here in California, and one thing that was interesting that I read recently was a local company that donated 4,000 Chromebooks and 100,000 Wi-Fi hotspots so that the students of California could more adequately access things in the current situation. Governor Gavin Newsom said that still puts us at 162,000 hotspots short of serving all of the students that we need to. And it just sort of brought to light to me the notion of corporate responsibility, where that role is for companies, how dependent we are on that, and whether you've seen that sort of generosity in any of your own communities in terms of the local companies reaching out in a way to sort of fill that void right now. Does anyone have any experience in that regard? Deborah?
I think in our community, everybody came out to help each other with the tornadoes and was reeling from that. We haven't personally seen companies coming to help us, but with the state funding that supports us, we've been in better shape than a number of nonprofits. So we're doing okay. We're able to keep our full staff employed, and there's no furloughs.
Right. And Barbara, do you have any thoughts?
So, yeah, it's tough. one of our funders very generously just made grants to all of their grantees. One day an extra few $1,000s showed up. And that was without an application, without any contact. It was just really lovely. We've gotten calls from several of our funders saying, what do you need? How can we help you? And so we're starting to now apply for some of these COVID dollars. We wanted to hold back. We wanted to hold back, number one, because we got some PPP dollars and some of the other arts organizations and cultural organizations in Newark didn't. And we wanted to make sure they went first. We've actually talked to some of our donors about some of those other organizations and encouraged them to make donations there because we have to save this whole sector. But now that I'm starting to see more funds come up, we just had a New Jersey for New Jersey concert. Some people saw it on TV. We're lucky to have all these great artists come out of the Garden State. And so they're funding the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund. And so as part of our grant application that we put in, it was to provide no cost programming in the Newark community. And we're including a request for some technology to get to those more young adults than current students. Students in the schools seem to have access to more computers and technology than graduates of the schools do. The young people that have graduated from high school but haven't really launched, haven't figured out where they are going. And they are the young people that participate in our college and career readiness programs. They're the ones that we're really concerned that if they don't kind of get on a path, they'll really be lost. And so we're hoping that some of these grant dollars will come through with funding to allow them to connect via technology to get their products online, to get to be able to market and to be able to continue education both in class and in product creation and entrepreneurship, and just stay connected in important ways.
Yeah. And Frederick, are you seeing any great access to grants or help from companies in the community that might be making donations to sort of alleviate some of the challenges in the current circumstance?
From my experience, the European system of funding is a little bit different to in the States. Private funding is much more accessible in the United States, whereas here we have government funding and government proposals that you have to write in and submit for. Comparable to you guys, but the private funding aspect with patrons, it's not so much of a thing here. Having said that, it is interesting because it's something that I'm working towards now as well, is finding a way to get the parents or friends of parents or anybody to submit maybe $1 or $2 or $3 in a recurring payment, kind of like the patronage sites, just to be able to sustain the overheads. And besides that, of course, there's always the proposals that have to be submitted. Actually, this afternoon I was doing a pitch for the youth program as well, so I was kind of versing myself to see if we can get some cash for a 2-year program. Everybody is looking towards the experimental programs at the moment. Crafts in general have been making a comeback. As far as I can tell, ceramics has been booming for the last few years in Belgium, especially the workshops and working galleries. So I'm kind of hoping that glass will be on the next step up after that. And especially now, outreach programs are more important than ever, relating to underprivileged kids that are stuck in a situation where things go from bad to worse, which they have in the last few months. So it becomes relative. And I'm hoping that in some way we can use what's happening to do a bit more good. We can really promote this, find ways to work around the COVID restrictions. Something that I'm doing specifically is taking in less students, working different hours, 3 or 4 students in the shop at a time, working outside, indoors, outdoors. It's just finding routes and patterns through the shop that people can be in and that it stays safe. and at the same time just trying to get them here as well. It falls back into that thing where I work specifically with schools that teach young immigrants the basics of the language before they continue on in their education. So I found like a let's say a pool of interest where I can go and we can pick out young students that we think would need a program like this. And whether there be funding or not, at the moment, as many of you also might do, there comes a point where, as an artist, you just invest in the program that you're running, and you don't get paid for it, and it just keeps going. Yeah, that's something that I've been figuring out as well. Some artists are public artists, communal artists, monumental artists, political artists. And then there's also, I believe, this thing called the outreach artists. And I think that a lot of people that have these organizations, one of my idols, for instance, Bill Dick, I believe that she's one of these outreach artists as well. Yeah, it's inspiring to look up to her and see what she's doing and what she has been doing for all these years. And I can imagine that just as myself and others, there are times where there is nothing and you just have to go for it and keep going.
Yeah. Great. Well, to close everything out today, I'd like to get some final thoughts from each of you, either something that you think has come out from this process that maybe was surprising, but something that you hope to carry into the future, or just some general thoughts regarding the sustainability of your programs and the challenges you're facing. Deborah, we can start with you.
Sure. I mean, just in general, we've had goals to expand some of our outreach programs with high schools and looking for other sources of revenue. And we have had more luck with individual donations than with large company-related donations. So we're originating some new events to make that happen. So I have more time at the moment, and as does my staff, to focus on some of these bigger goals and getting to them closer in time frame than we might have otherwise. So that's been good. But just in general, I don't know, I found it personally a really good time to think about, one-on-one interactions with people and being kind and being patient and taking care of people when they need it and all that stuff. I don't know, it's just been pretty emotional, truly.
Yeah. Barbara, how about you?
So let's see, there's been a silver lining for us. Not one that I would ever have chosen to explore, but we're doing our best to make lemonade here. Let's see how many metaphors I can get into that. So we've taken time to document our curriculum, which we've never really been able to do because we just do, and we've never really documented. And so we think that's going to serve us well in terms of being able to connect with teachers and their classes and really help them tie what we do into curriculum that they're teaching. We have been working on trauma-informed programming, really thanks to our colleague Pearl Dick in Chicago. She's really been very generous with sharing what she's been doing. And so we're going to be launching some trauma-informed programming in the fall, and boy, timely it will be. And we'll figure out how to do that. And we're working in conjunction with the hospital that's been the hardest hit in terms of COVID cases in Newark. And so being able to work with their staff at some point in the not too distant future is going to be a real gift, I think, that we can all share. We've been really exploring this distance learning, and I think that it will give us an opportunity to reach young people that may never get to our studios in ways that we could only have imagined before. We always want everyone to come to our studios, but we know that it's not possible. But now that we've had some time to explore how we can present what it is we're doing, in a variety of formats, we think that we'll be able to connect with those in Newark, Delaware, in Newark, I don't know, there's Newarks in every state, I think. So you don't have to even be in New Jersey to connect. So we're looking forward to kind of taking advantage of that. And, you know, Glassroots is moving. We're moving to new studios in October, I think. And we have lots of challenges in front of us. There's a lot to happen between now and then. We have to open, we have to kind of restart our economy, and then we have to figure out how to move. So we're looking forward to all of this. It's daunting, but you know, the glass teaches us, right, that we're resilient, that we, it may fall off the punty and shatter, and we'll pick it up and make something new and shiny. So
Thank you, Barbara. So Frederick, do you have some final thoughts for us as well?
Actually, I think a lot of it's been said already. It's been nice to be a part of the panel. Thank you for that. I hope that we can continue on in the future with trying to, you know, exchange each other's work methods. Pretty much the whole idea of the committee, trying to build that baseline where we can exchange knowledge. So I hope that continues.
Great. Well, thank you all for being a part of the panel today. As we move into the future, I am thinking of all of you, as we all are, trying to work together and do what we can to help one another. And in that vein, look for the hashtag Glass Connections as you are online, and also for the community outreach features, which we will be adding to the GAS website. So thank you all again for your participation today.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.